Hey guys, Joe Miles here with Osseo Gear. This is the Mission Whitetail podcast. We're going to be doing a deep dive into what it truly takes to kill these mature bucks. We're going to step outside the box and look at the why for gear, tactics, training, and more importantly, the mindset from over 35 years of chasing these magnificent animals all over North America. Thank you for following along and welcome to Mission Whitetail.
Mission Whitetail, episode 72, running solo again today. Got Andrew in the studio here with us. We are finishing out the year, guys. This is the last episode for 2024, and we'll be rolling hard into 2025. Got a great guest coming up, first episode in 2025. Merry Christmas. This episode actually will be launching on Christmas Day, so hope everybody is having a very Merry Christmas. Wanted to break down today the Mexico hunt as well as the first hunt with the Recurve. Some lessons learned, and actually learned a lot of them yesterday when I got home. We had a long flight home, my son and I did, on Saturday morning. We left really early out of San Antonio. We drove from the ranch to the Laredo airport, rented a car from the Laredo airport, and then drove all the way to San Antonio. Of course, we stopped and got some sausage and Texas brisket while on the way. So that was good, but long trip, and we ended up having to get a hotel in San Antonio and then a 5:20 a.m. flight the Saturday before Christmas, so you can imagine what the airport was like. The reason for that is because our flight on Sunday got kind of messed up, and our connection time was only 30 minutes, so we moved it up. And where I was going with that is, after that long flight and everything, I went for a long walk when I got home Saturday, and I listened to a podcast. I don't remember the name of the podcast, but it was with Joel Turner, who is an archery coach, and he made some absolutely incredible points that if I had listened to before that hunt, I think I would have shot better than I did, and we'll get into what those points were. But between he and my time with Bobby Worthington shooting, I have definitely increased the bell curve of learning to shoot these recurve bows or traditional bows. And it's still, you can get as much practice and as much information, quote unquote, coaching as you can possibly get. But until you get into the actual act and have a trophy caliber deer or a deer that you're looking for, an animal of any sort, in front of you that you're going after, and the adrenaline starts going, things can get away from you. So I'm just going to start from the beginning. This was a father-son trip. Took my son and my roommate from college, took his 3 boys, and we all went down. We got there, Jack and I got there a little bit early. First afternoon, well, no, let's back up even a little bit further. So we get there, get everything unpacked. This is the first time I have taken my Bushman Recurve apart. You know, it comes apart at the handle, and you unstring it, and I packed everything up nice. I actually bubble wrapped the entire bow just to make sure nothing would happen to it while it flew. But then when I got down to the ranch, you know, unpacked everything, got the bow put back together, restrung, and before I left at 12 and 15 yards, I was shooting a 3-inch group with 5 arrows. I mean, especially the 12-yard thing that I got set back in the back warehouse here where my gym is. I've got 12 to 13 yards indoor, and I literally was shooting a 3-inch group with 5 arrows. I mean, it was dialed. I felt incredibly accurate. Well, I get the bow all put together, and I go outside, and all the ranch hands and the owner of the ranch are all standing around, and I've got this recurve bow. I'm the first guy to ever hunt on this ranch with a recurve, and they're all watching. And man, I don't know if it, well, I know it was the pressure of having other people around, but I started shooting that thing, and it, my 3-inch group went to 6, 8, 9 inches in a hurry, to where I was even a little bit nervous about taking it hunting. But I was, settled down, and I will remember the last shooting lesson I had with Bobby. Andrew was actually there for that. He filmed that. Bobby told me that a lot of guys that sign up for these national competitions, they are world-class shooters at their home range or in their backyard or in their downstairs basement at 20 yards. They're world-class. They can shoot dime-sized groups with 3 arrows, but as soon as they get pressure, meaning a competition or out of their comfort zone, things start to fall apart. And I started seeing that immediately. The compound over the years, I go back to when I first started shooting the compound, and I was young. I was 12, 13, 14 years old. So I don't remember that. I do remember the first doe I ever shot at. I shot about 6 feet over its back, but I don't remember the compound being quite like that. And now, I can shoot the compound, it really any target, and I'm very, very comfortable with it and shoot pretty good. But Bobby said when you get into those higher pressure situations and you're shooting the recurve and you haven't been in them before, things can start to fall apart. And you have to have a process, and that's what the Joel Turner guys, I highly recommend, whether you're shooting a rifle, a bow, a recurve, whatever it may be, is to look up his shot IQ, and he talks about some steps there about having a process that you go through. And man, if I had really drilled down more on that, I think my shooting would have been better. And the process that he talks about, and I'm not trying to steal his thunder at all. This is strictly from him, and I won't have it exactly right. I'd highly recommend you listen to what he talks about, but it's about anchoring, aiming. It's about putting something in your mind, here we go, getting focused, and then pulling the shot or pulling through the shot. Again, I don't have the terminology right, but it's a lot better to have a mental focus of a shot process than just pulling it back and ripping it. And he talks about being the loudest in the room, and that's in your mind, because when you get that thing pulled back, your subconscious is saying, let it go, let it go, let it go, get rid of this thing. And the animal's 10, 12 yards away, and your subconscious is like, you're going to hit it, just send it. Whereas you need to methodically go through your shot process every single time, regardless of how close, how far, whatever it is, and have your process that you are mentally overriding your subconscious. And firsthand experience of exactly what he's talking about. You can call it buck fever. You can call it target panic. You can call it my subconscious taking over. And I had been doing a pretty good job in the back. My thought process was anchor. That was the first thing. And then aim, and then execute. And that's using your rhomboids and your elbow to push back towards your spine for the release of the arrow. And I had gotten pretty good at that, but it kind of all went out the window, and I'll walk through it. So first afternoon of the hunt, we get in the blind, and in Mexico and Texas, it's all about feed. You put the feed out and hear the deer come. So lots of great opportunities. And this ranch, it's a 30,000 acre, low fence, free range ranch, highly managed, very lucky and appreciative to get to hunt there. But man, you got a ton of opportunity. So first afternoon, a really nice, mature 10-point comes into 15 yards. I'm, standing up in this box blind, and I noticed that the top of the bow is going to hit the roof. So I decided to sit down in a chair. And I've talked about this before. 2 words that you never say are always and never. You know, you guys talk about I always shoot sitting down or I always shoot standing up. Well, that's not always the case, and you need to practice both of those. And I have never shot the recurve sitting down. You know, I just figured I'd always be standing up. And because the roof of the blind was so low, I elected to sit down in the chair, and I did. And I got the buck pretty close to broadside, maybe slightly quartering to 15 yards away, feeding, and probably should have waited until he had his head up. But man, when it was time to go, I drew. I felt like I was anchored. I didn't go through my process, and I just sent it. You know, I looked kind of down the arrow, and not only was I high, but the buck kind of jumped the string a little bit, and I probably shot 8 to 12 inches over his back, and he ran. And, you know, I kind of had a decision to make right there. I was like, do I really want to do this? I mean, I've traveled all the way to Mexico. I've got this recurve bow. Do I really want to continue doing this? Because if I had my compound, I mean, he's dead. The buck's in the back of the truck, and we're going back to celebrate. And now, not only have I missed him, I've missed him by 10 or 12 inches high. Now, he did drop some, and so that plays a little bit of a part of it. But I knew when the arrow left the bow that I had made mental mistakes, and the shot was high. So I get back to the lodge, kind of settle down, think about it, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna keep going with it. I've worked too hard over the last 6 months shooting this thing. If I can get my mind right, I think I can make it happen. And so the next morning, back in the blind, saw quite a few bucks. 9 o'clock in the morning, we had seen this particular 9-point with split G2s, beautiful buck. We'd seen him early, and it was too dark to shoot inside of the blind. And I also wanted to see if there was any way possible that I could stand up and shoot. And so he left, so I ended up I stood up. We had some does and some smaller bucks around, and I figured out that if I really spread my legs out wide and just kind of got down in a squat, which is not perfect form by any stretch of the imagination, but I could make the shot work, that I was going to try that because I was standing then. And that buck came back in to feed about 9 o'clock in the morning, and he was at 12 yards, perfectly broadside. And I went through my shot process, and I went through the first 2. I got anchored, I aimed, but then as soon as I aimed, I mentally checked out again and sent it, and I hit him high and back. Now, to me, it looked like a kill shot. You know, it was high and back, but it was probably 8 inches below the spine, kind of back of the lungs, and I saw a lot of blood coming out of him as he ran off. But again, you know, you're thinking 60-40, we find him because that brush is so thick. And, you know, again, I'm like, golly, I just cannot get it together with this mental game of shooting this recurve. We're about to call the trucks to come get us, and we look, and coming down the Sendero are 5 javelinas. And guys, if you don't know what a javelina is, it's like a miniature pig. They're maybe 50 pounds, one of the bigger boars, and there was a big boar in the group, and they started feeding in. They got into about 12 yards, and the boar was slightly quartering to, and I was like, man, you know what? I'm gonna try it. So I went through every part of my mental checklist or shot process. I got drawn, I got anchored, I aimed, and then I loudly almost out loud in my brain, I overrode everything. Overrid, is that correct grammar, Andrew? Overrode, yes. I overrode my subconscious of send it, and I shot execute pull through, and I 10-ringed him. I could not have walked up to that 50-pound javelina and put my arrow through him with my hand any better than that shot. So now confidence level is way up. I mean, the thing runs 50 yards and falls over, and it's a 50-pound animal. I've just shot a 200-pound whitetail and missed where I was aiming by probably a foot. And I'd missed the one the evening before, but I'm 100% sure it went back to this is a really big whitetail, which is what we're after. And so there's adrenaline flowing, there's excitement, there's a little bit of buck fever. And yeah, man, I mean, I've been doing this since I was 5 years old, and I still, man, I can almost hear my heart beating when a good target buck or a buck I want to shoot comes in. I get fired up, and when that feeling goes away, it'll be time to hang the bow up and start fishing or something. But I still get absolutely fired up. And Andrew, I'm not picking on fishing because I know you love to fish, but I'm just saying changing obsessions or changing hobbies. And it just, that excitement, that adrenaline, your brain telling you to get it done, to kill deer, it just takes you away, which is, it's difficult. It is for me anyway. I'm sure some guys get it no problem. But the little 50-pound javelina, I mean, I could not have shot him any better with my compound, with a rifle. So I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can absolutely do it. I just proved it to myself. And the difference was I was completely relaxed, and I went through the process perfectly. Anchor, aim, here we go, execute the shot. And I did, hit him perfect. So hunted a couple more times, and we saw a really big 150-inch 9-point, and we were going to give him a try. Afternoon hunt. Afternoon hunt. He comes in with another buck, and they're posturing up, ears back, all bristled up. He kind of chased this buck off. The buck would come back. He'd chase him off. They'd come into the feed. They'd leave, just kind of back and forth. And again, man, when that's happening, and that's a buck you want to shoot, the adrenaline is kind of picking up. Finally, he comes in, and he's 13 yards. I ranged him 13 yards, and he's straight on, facing me. I'm holding the bow. I've got my tab set where it needs to be. I'm shooting a fixed crawl using the tip of the arrow to aim with, and I know exactly where I've got to aim at that distance. I put the arrow right on his brisket, and it should hit perfect, right in the middle of the lungs. And it's starting to get dark, and I'm in that kind of that half crouch position. It's getting uncomfortable, and it sounds like I'm making a bunch of excuses here. I'm just telling you exactly how the hunt went. Well, the buck finally gets broadside, and I mean, he is perfectly broadside, 13 yards, relaxed. That other buck's fed off, so he's the only deer around us. I get drawn, I get anchored, I aim. And again, that last step, and I don't know why that's the hard one for me, and maybe that's the hard one for everybody. I've got to do some more research on that and see what the holdup is. But getting anchored, I did that great. I aimed, I put it right where it needed to be. I was right on the brisket. But then I'm certain that I plucked the string a little bit, and it hit back and down. It killed the buck. You know, he didn't go very far, but it still wasn't where I was aiming. And it was all about the end process of the shot execution. So I had come a long way with the javelina and made a great shot on him. And then I kind of went back into kind of subconscious there at the end. But what it's done now is it's kind of lit a fire under me, because it has been so hard for me to get it dialed in that I want to get more coaching. I want to work on my shot. I want to hunt more with it. And maybe that's the thing, is that I should have started with some hogs and some does and, kind of grew into this. But, I like to kind of dive in and get going. And so I wanted to, chase some good bucks. And so I am excited about it. I am going to be hunting with it a lot more the rest of the year. We've got a trip coming going to Texas. That'll kind of wrap up the season for the most part for me. South Carolina will be out. As of last night, that Swamp 10-point is still around. I got one picture of him at 3 o'clock in the morning going through kind of a water-type funnel area. But it was 3 o'clock in the morning, 2:30, something like that. But he is still alive. Maybe he will make it through, and if he does, there's no telling what he may be next year. I'm sure the whole Congaree Swamp will be hunting him, including myself. But doesn't look like I'm going to get another opportunity. We got Christmas today, and then we've got day after Christmas family stuff, and then we head to Texas, so we'll be hunting in Texas. And then by the time we get home, our season goes out January 1, New Year's Day, and that'll be it. So won't be able to hunt there anymore. There is a chance. My buddy Jeff up in Ohio has talked about maybe he and I doing a late season hunt on some of his properties up there. So I'm pretty excited about that if it comes to be. One of my cameras that's on one of those farms up there got a pretty good 10-point last night, going out and into some feed to out into a food plot that had been planted. So if we get some really cold weather after Christmas, the season there goes until I think the first Saturday of February. We'll be able to get up there and possibly do late season. And yeah, man, I'm going to stick with the recurve, and I think next year it may be all recurve. I've got, again, a lot of practice to do. I've got a long way to go to get super efficient with it. It's amazing to me how mental it is, because it's such a simple tool, right? It's a stick and a string and an arrow and a broadhead and a knock. And it's just a simple tool that takes a ton of mental discipline to fire it effectively. And it's such a challenge. I did a season update while I was down there. Jack was filming that season update, and I said it's like the transition from rifle to compound, but I think it's even more than that. I don't know what to equate it to. I really don't know anything else that has been this mentally challenging over the years, with weapon systems to get that efficient. It seems like the long range shooting and stuff with rifles, you can get that pretty dialed, and you just kind of stay on top of it. It's all mental, the physical component. I've definitely got to get my shoulders stronger, and I don't want to keep harping on the recurve stuff, but I am very, very excited and pretty committed to getting very efficient with this. I'm going to try to do some off-season stuff, some axis. Going to go to Africa and take it over there and try and do some waterhole stuff for some kudu, impala, wildebeest. I think that'll help a lot. And then get with Bobby a lot in the off-season and shoot with him a bunch. I know he's trying for another world record this year in the tournament world, and I think if he gets that, he'll have just about every world record that there is. So that's a pretty incredible accomplishment. And it is pretty – I may have talked about this before, but Bobby is a really – charismatic, fun-loving guy to be around. And when Andrew and I went and shot with him in Chattanooga at the archery range, when he went into shot sequence mode, it was literally like watching a lion slipping up on a zebra. I mean, he blocked it was almost like he got mad. And I mean, it was something to behold. And when he got into his shot sequence, I think you could have fired a pistol right by his head and he would not have heard it go off. I mean, he was dialed in, and I mean, he's shooting quarter-size groups with 3 arrows at 25 yards. And it's just, something to behold. I strive to get that good. And I mean, we're talking about a man that's 70 years old and still dropping stuff like that. Pretty impressive. But guys, short podcast today. I know people have got Christmas going on. Just want to thank everybody for the last years of following along with the podcast. We appreciate the support. We really hope that the podcast is bringing value in the real world of hunting. We try to bring the why, the how, the experience that we have, the success and the failures, because everybody has them. I'm not going to get on the social media again about how it looks like everybody's killing big deer. That's not the way it is. Most of the folks struggle with things, including us. It's something that we deal with failure all the time, and would love to hear topics. We've had a bunch of different guests over the last 2 years that we've had on, from dog tracking to shooting experts to funnel hunting to mobile hunting, to cameras to scent control. We'd love to hear what else you guys would like to hear about going into 2025. We've got some resources. We can get some experts in here to go over some things. I want to get some more traditional guys on the podcast because I just absolutely love that. And I feel like anything you can learn from that demographic, guys that are successful with the traditional equipment, man, it's anybody that listens to their stories and how they do things, regardless of whether you're a compound, a crossbow, a rifle hunter, whatever it is, man, we can all learn from that. It's almost like the tip of the spear. And I am so thankful to have gotten those 2 bucks in that javelina. A lot of lessons learned, and I'm just going to keep chipping away and trying to get a little bit better every time I shoot. I've got a little place set up in my room at home where I can shoot at home now, taking the bow just about everywhere I go. I've gotten pretty obsessed with it. I was joking with the boys at lunch. I watched Last of the Mohicans last night, and the wife absolutely rolled her eyes and was just like, you're taking this a little bit too far. So needless to say, I'm in love with the traditional equipment and looking forward to 2025. Guys, Merry Christmas. Thank you all so much for following along. And again, anybody you want to hear next year, any topic, you can email us. You can email me directly, joe@ociogear.com, and we'll make sure we make it happen. Guys, have a wonderful 2025, and thank you all again.